Okay, let's talk about something I think uh, everyone experiences eventually. You're outside, maybe at a barbecue, and suddenly you're the only one being dive-bombed by mosquitoes,
Yeah.
while everyone else is just fine. It feels personal, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It really does. And you're right. You're definitely not imagining things.
It's real.
It's a very real phenomenon, scientifically observable. It's not just, bad luck.
Okay, good. So in this deep dive, we're getting straight into the science. Why are some of us basically mosquito magnets?
Exactly. We'll look at how these, well, tiny but incredibly effective creatures actually find us.
And what our own, like, human signature has to do with it all.
Right. The goal here is to arm you with knowledge, not just to dodge bites, but to understand the bigger picture, too, the diseases they can carry.
Okay, so where do we start? To figure out why they pick you, I guess we need to understand how they operate first.
Precisely. We need to get inside the mosquito sensory world, so to speak. It's not random at all. It's a really sophisticated, multi-step strategy.
Mm.
Yes. Remember, it's only the females that bite. They need that blood meal for their eggs to develop. And they use this incredible combination of sense of smell, sight, even heat detection, all working together. Think of it like a guided missile system almost.
Wow. Okay, so what's the first signal? How do they even know we're around from, like, far away?
It all starts with carbon dioxide.
Your breaths.
Breath. Exactly. Every time we exhale, we release this plume of co-euro. For a mosquito, that's the primary long-range alert signal. It basically shouts, potential meal nearby.
Mm.
And they can detect it from surprisingly far away. Some studies say up to 10 meters, others mention 50 meters.
50 meters, that's huge.
It is. Some sources even suggest maybe 30 to 170 feet. That's a serious distance.
Incredible. But is it just like a beacon saying, come here, or does it do more?
It does more. It's actually quite clever, evolutionarily speaking. The co-euro acts as what scientists call a gating mechanism. Yeah, it essentially wakes up resting female mosquitoes and makes them pay attention to other cues. Without sensing that cue first, they might completely ignore a visual target, like a dark shape. But once they detect the cue, that same dark shape suddenly becomes very interesting, very attractive.
Ah, so it focuses their search, saves energy.
Exactly. They don't waste time investigating things that aren't breathing. They detect it using very specific receptors on their maxillary palps.
Okay, so Keo gets them interested in heading in the right direction. What happens next when they get closer, say within 50 feet or so?
Right, that's the intermediate range. Now, vision and movement become much more important.
What are they looking for visually? Their eyesight isn't amazing, is it?
It's not sharp like ours, no, but their compound eyes are very good at detecting movement and, importantly, contrast. They're drawn to things that stand out against the background, particularly high-contrast objects and dark colors. Lab studies, especially with the Aedes aegypti mosquito, the one that spreads dengue and Zika, showed they really go for red, orange, black, and cyan targets.
Red and orange. Wait, isn't human skin?
You got it. Human skin reflects those red and orange wavelengths quite strongly. So if you're wearing dark clothing, especially reds or blacks, you might actually be making yourself a more obvious target for them visually.
Huh. So wearing light colors like white or pastels actually helps make you less visible to them.
It seems so. It reduces that contrast, and movement helps them too, so even something simple like an oscillating fan can help. It disperses the co-euro plume and creates confusing visual motion. Makes it harder for them to lock on.
Okay, co-euro, then vision. What's the final step when they get really close, like arm's length?
Right, the final approach. This is typically less than a meter, maybe 4 feet or so. Now, other senses take over. Body heat, humidity, and crucially, body odor.
Heat. They can sense our body heat.
Oh, yes. They have thermal receptors. They show a clear preference for objects warm to human body temperature around that 98.6 Fahrenheit mark, or 33-37 Celsius. It's another short-range cue helping them find exposed skin.
Wow. And humidity.
Yep, the plumes of moisture rising from our skin also signal living thing right here. You'll see traps that are humidified are generally more effective. It triggers hovering and landing behavior.
But you said body odor is crucial.
Absolutely. At this close range, it's the ultimate confirmation signal. Our skin releases this incredibly complex mix, hundreds of different volatile organic compounds. Scientists call it a pheromone cocktail.
A pheromone cocktail.
Yeah.
Sounds fancy.
It just means a blend of chemicals released by one species that benefits another, in this case, the mosquito. Their olfactory system, their sense of smell, is exquisitely tuned to detect this unique human blend. It helps them distinguish us from, say, a dog or a bird.
Okay, so that brings us right back to the main question. We all have skin, we all breathe out key euros, we're all warm. Why do some of us get hammered way more than others?
Yeah.
What's different about our human signature?
Well, this is where it gets really personal. And the difference can be huge. Studies suggest something like a 100-fold difference in attractiveness between individuals.
100 times.
Yeah. And you often hear about super attractors. Maybe around 20% of people get something like 80% of the bites.
Okay, I might be in that 20%.
Could be. And what's really telling is that this preference seems pretty consistent over years for an individual. That strongly suggests it's tied to our innate biology.
So, like, genetics.
Genetics plays a big role, yes. Research indicates that maybe up to 67% of the variation in how attractive we are to mosquitoes could be heritable. That's similar to traits like height or even IQ.
Wow. How do they know that?
Twin studies are a key piece of evidence. Identical twins who share nearly all their DNA tend to be much more similar in their mosquito attractiveness compared to fraternal twins, who only share about half their genes like regular siblings.
That makes sense. Are there specific genes involved?
There are. For example, variations in genes related to our HLA system, that's the human leukocyte antigen system. Part of our immune system seem to influence the specific scent chemicals our bodies produce and release.
I remember seeing, I think it was a Veritasium video, where they tested this.
Yes, that was a great illustration. The host and his wife had very different experiences with mosquitoes, right? One was a magnet, the other wasn't.
Yeah.
And they did a DNA test afterwards, referencing a 23andMe study that had identified specific genetic locations linked to attractiveness. Their results lined up. The person who got bitten more had genetic variants associated with higher attraction, while the other had protective ones. It's a really neat example of how our genes can subtly shape this.
So genetics sets a baseline, maybe? What else contributes to this unique signature?
Well, another huge factor is actually the community of microbes living on your skin microbiome.
Bacteria on my skin. How does that affect mosquitoes?
Okay, so human sweat itself, when it's first produced, is pretty much odorless.
Right.
The characteristic body odor smell happens when the bacteria living on your skin start metabolizing compounds in your sweat. They break them down into volatile chemicals, ones that evaporate easily and create scents. And those are what mosquitoes are smelling.
So it's the bacteria doing the work.
Largely, yes. And here's a fascinating finding. People who are more attractive to mosquitoes tend to have a higher abundance of bacteria on their skin, but a lower diversity of bacterial species.
More bacteria, but fewer types. That seems counterintuitive.
It does a bit, doesn't it? But the thinking is that a less diverse microbiome might be dominated by a few specific types of bacteria that are just really, really good at producing the particular volatile compounds that mosquitoes find irresistible.
Like what kind of compounds?
Key ones include lactic acid, which is abundant in sweat, ammonia, and certain short-chain carboxylic acids, things like butyric acid, isovaleric acid. Highly attractive people tend to emit higher levels of these.
And carboxylic acid, some of those smell kind of cheesy.
Some of them do. In fact, some researchers famously compared the scent profile of highly attractive individuals to Limburger cheese, which relies on similar bacteria for its aroma.
Okay, note to self. Maybe avoid Limburger before going camping.
Probably wise. And conversely, people with different bacterial communities might produce more compounds that are naturally repellent to mosquitoes, like certain aldehydes or ketones, making them less appealing targets.
So genetics, skin bacteria.
Right.
What about just basic physiology? Does size matter?
It does, absolutely. It links back to those initial cues. Larger individuals generally exhale more KO simply because they have a larger body mass and higher metabolic rate.
More KO, bigger signal.
Exactly, and they often emit more body heat as well. So factors that increase your metabolic rate tend to make you more attractive.
Like being taller or heavier.
Yeah.
What else?
Well, pregnant women are a classic example. They consistently attract significantly more mosquitoes, sometimes nearly twice as many.
Why is that?
Two main reasons. They exhale more KOs, about 20–21% more than non-pregnant women, and their core body temperature is slightly higher, maybe by 0.7 to 1 degree Celsius. So they're broadcasting stronger CO and heat signals.
A double whammy, like you said. What about exercise?
Same principle. When you exercise, your metabolic rate goes up, you breathe out more C euros, your body temperature increases, you sweat more, releasing more lactic acid and other compounds, you basically become a flashing beacon for mosquitoes.
Okay, that explains why I get swarmed after a run.
Makes perfect sense.
Are there lifestyle things too, like what we eat or drink?
Yes, some interesting links there. Alcohol consumption, especially beer, has been shown in studies to measurably increase attractiveness to mosquitoes.
Really? Beer? Why?
The exact reason isn't perfectly clear. It doesn't seem to be just about increased uro or skin temperature. It might actually alter the blend of chemicals released through the skin, enhancing those attractive human odor cues.
Huh. Okay, what about food? Does eating garlic keep them away? Or bananas make you a target?
Yeah, you hear those a lot. The evidence for diet is generally weaker or more anecdotal. There's no good scientific proof that eating garlic or taking vitamin B supplements repels mosquitoes, despite the folklore. Some small studies hinted that eating bananas might increase attractiveness, possibly by changing skin volatiles, but it's not definitive. There's also some suggestion that maybe plant-based diets could potentially reduce certain carboxylic acids, but again, more research is needed.
Okay, so maybe don't rely on garlic necklaces.
Yeah.
What about blood type? I always hear they prefer type O.
The blood type question. This one is debated. There are some studies, often older or specific to certain mosquito species, that suggested preferences. Like some Aedes species seem to favor type O, while some Anopheles, malaria carriers, maybe preferred AB. There's also the secretaire status. About 80% of people secrete antigens related to their blood type into body fluids like sweat and saliva, which mosquitoes might detect. But major health organizations, like the CDC in China, for example, state pretty clearly that there's no credible, consistent evidence that blood type is a major factor across the board. They emphasize that key oros and those skin odor cocktails are far more dominant attractants.
So maybe a tiny factor for some mosquitoes, but not the main driver.
That seems to be the consensus. It's not something to really bank on for protection. Unlike, say, revisiting clothing color, remembering that light colors really can make a difference visually.
Right. Okay, so understanding why they bite us is fascinating, but it's also really important because, well, they're not just annoying, are they?
Not at all. They have a massive global impact. Mosquitoes are often called the deadliest animals on Earth for humans
Deadliest why?
because of the diseases they transmit. They're estimated to cause around 750,000 deaths every single year, mainly from malaria. That's potentially more than any other single animal cause.
Wow. And malaria is just one.
Just one. Remember, it's the female needing blood for her eggs. When she bites, she injects saliva to stop the blood clotting, and that's the delivery mechanism for viruses and parasites. We're talking malaria, dengue, Zika, West Nile virus, Japanese encephalitis, Murray Valley encephalitis, Ross River virus, Barma forest virus. The list is long and scary.
And some of those, like Japanese encephalitis or West Nile,
Yeah.
they can be fatal or cause really serious long-term problems, right?
Absolutely. Lifelong neurological disability is a real risk with some of these infections.
It's sobering. And I read something fascinating, that the diseases themselves can sometimes make us more attractive to mosquitoes.
Yes, it's a terrifyingly brilliant co-evolutionary strategy. Pathogens like the Plasmodium parasite, which causes malaria, can actually manipulate the infected person's body chemistry. They can alter the scent profile, for instance, increasing the release of certain compounds like specific aldehydes that might smell slightly fruity, which makes that infected person more appealing to mosquitoes.
So the parasite helps itself get picked up and spread further.
Exactly. It enhances its own transmission cycle. It's quite incredible, biologically speaking.
Given how dangerous they are, surveillance must be critical. How do authorities keep track of mosquito populations and the diseases they carry?
It's a vital public health function. Take Victoria, Australia, for example. They have a well-established surveillance program. Around 20 local councils operate about 70 mosquito traps across the state.
What do these traps look like? How do they work?
They're pretty clever mimics of a host. They release Syncu eros, that long-range attractant we talked about, detectable from up to 50 meters. As mosquitoes follow the QO trail and get closer, they're drawn in by a small light source, which they probably perceive as a patch of bare skin. Then, whoop, a fan creates a downdraft that sucks them into a collection chamber.
And they set these up regularly.
Yep, usually set at dusk when many mosquito species are most active, and then collected the following morning.
What happens to the trapped mosquitoes then?
They're packaged up and sent off to a laboratory. There, they're counted, identified by species because different species carry different diseases, and then they're basically pureed into a liquid.
Sounds appetizing.
Yes. But from that liquid, they extract the genetic material and use PCR polymerase chain reaction to test for the DNA or RNA of specific viruses. They typically screen for the main ones of concern in that region, like Ross River or Japanese encephalitis.
And how quickly do they get results?
Remarkably fast, usually within about 2 days. This allows public health units to issue timely warnings to the public if virus activity is detected in mosquitoes in a particular area.
That's impressive. How long have programs like this been running?
In Victoria, that surveillance started back after a major Murray Valley encephalitis outbreak in 1974, which was linked to widespread flooding. Sadly, that outbreak caused several deaths and left others with permanent brain damage. More recently, they detected Japanese encephalitis virus in Australia, first in pigs, then in humans. It's thought to have been spread by migratory water birds carrying the virus south.
And with climate change. I guess the concern is that mosquito ranges and disease patterns might shift.
That is a major concern, yes. Warmer temperatures and altered rainfall patterns could potentially lead to larger mosquito populations, longer breeding seasons, and the spread of diseases like Murray Valley encephalitis or even dengue into areas where they weren't previously common. Surveillance becomes even more critical.
Okay, so knowing all this, the attraction factors, the diseases, what are the best ways to protect ourselves right now? And what's on the horizon?
Well, the current best practices are pretty standard but effective. Using insect repellents containing proven active ingredients like DET or picaridin is key. Wearing long, loose-fitting, and light-colored clothing provides a physical barrier. Getting rid of any stagnant water around your home, pot plant saucers, old tires, bird baths eliminates breeding sites. And in some areas, authorities use larvicides in larger bodies of water, which target mosquito larvae specifically without harming other wildlife much. Currently, a vaccine is only widely available for Japanese encephalitis.
So those are the basics. But thinking longer term, how can this deeper understanding of their senses in our signatures lead to smarter ways to fight them?
That's the exciting part. This knowledge opens doors. For instance, we could develop much more effective traps. Imagine traps that don't just use KROs, but also release a carefully formulated blend of those specific human chemical attractants we talked about, maybe even combined with a heat
The
source.
super traps.
Essentially, yes. We could also design novel repellents. Instead of just masking our scent, perhaps they could actively block the specific receptors mosquitoes use to detect KRO or those key human pheromones. Or maybe interfere with the olfactory pathways they use to process that human signal.
Targeting their specific sensors. And what about manipulating our own signature? You mentioned the skin microbiome.
That's a fascinating frontier personalized protection. Could we develop, say, special soaps or even probiotic-like skin treatments? Things that selectively kill off the bad bacteria-producing attractants or encourage the growth of good bacteria that produce natural repellent compounds.
Wow, changing our scent profile deliberately.
It's theoretically possible. The ultimate aim for all these future strategies is the same, to break the cycles of disease transmission more effectively and ultimately save lives.
So it's been a real deep dive, hasn't it, into why mosquitoes seem to single you out. It really is an incredible evolutionary dance.
It truly is a complex interplay between the mosquito's highly adapted sensory toolkit and our own unique biological signature shaped by our genes, our microbes, our physiology, even what we had for dinner or drink last night.
Understanding all those factors is definitely key.
Absolutely. It helps us see why current protections work and where future innovations might lie.
Okay, as we finish up, here's something to chew on. We talked about how vital Coiro is, that initial wake-up call for mosquitoes, the gating mechanism. So what if we could develop some kind of safe, maybe wearable tech that creates a tiny, localized Kikoiro vacuum right around a person? Could we effectively become invisible to their primary long-range radar?
An interesting thought experiment, disrupting that very first signal.
We're thinking about that pathogen manipulation, how diseases can make us more attractive. What other subtle signals might our bodies be sending out when we're ill, signals we don't even know about yet? And could understanding those signals lead to breakthroughs, not just in mosquito control, but maybe even in detecting all sorts of illnesses much earlier?